أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم كما أرسلنا فيكم رسولا منكم يتلو عليكم آياتنا ويزكيكم ويعلمكم الكتاب والحكمة ويعلمكم ما لم تكونوا تعلمون فاذكروني أذكركم واشكروا لي ولا تكفرون. One aspect of Allah's, the mission of guidance being complete has already happened. And that is, كَمَا أَرْسَلْنَا فِيكُمْ رَسُولًا. Just as we sent among your midst, a messenger. The fact that the final messenger has come to humanity, in one sense, the favor of Allah on humanity has already been completed. That aspect of it. What aspect of it? That a messenger has already been sent. That final messenger. That is the seal of all messengers. Then the phrasing that's used is the exact same phrasing that was found in the dua of Ibrahim alayhi salam. كَمَا أَرْسَلْنَا فِيكُمْ رَسُولًا مِّنْكُمْ يَتْلُو عَلَيْكُمْ آيَاتِنَا وَيُزَكِّيكُمْ وَيُعَلِّمُكُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةَ. That he, يَتْلُو عَلَيْكُمْ آيَاتِنَا, he reads onto you our miraculous signs, our ayat. وَيُزَكِّيكُمْ, and he cleanses you, he purifies you. وَيُعَلِّمُكُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةَ, and he teaches you the book and the wisdom. So this 4-step process in a different arrangement, and we talked about that in more detail in the first juz, when this first came up, that Ibrahim alayhi salam, when he asked for this dua, he put yuzakkihim at the end, that he should teach them, he should recite the ayat onto them, teach them the book and the wisdom, and purify them. Purification was mentioned at the end. But now Allah is answering that dua. First of all, what's special about this dua is Allah used the second person, كَمَا أَرْسَلْنَا فِيكُمْ رَسُولًا مِّنْكُمْ يَتْلُو عَلَيْكُمْ آيَاتِنَا وَيُزَكِّيكُمْ, letting the ummah know that you specifically are being gifted with the response of the dua of Ibrahim, not anybody else. You are being addressed with these same phrases. He used the third person because he didn't know his children in the future, and Allah is telling us specifically, or the ummah, the followers of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that you are the fulfillment of the dua of Ibrahim alayhi salam. Just a very quick reminder, because these are important concepts. The idea of purification. وَيُزَكِّيكُمْ, he will cleanse you, he will purify you. He'll recite the ayat onto you. That's a very simple thing to understand. But the logical progression, by reciting the ayat onto you, the next thing will happen, which is that he's going to be cleansing you, he's going to be purifying you. When we talked about purification, I hope you recall there were 2 kinds of purification. There's a purification of the heart, and there's a purification of the mind. So we have to purify our characters, our mannerisms, our lusts, what we think about all the time, what we love, what we aspire for, how much remembrance of Allah is in our hearts. That's a kind of purification, to cleanse our hearts from things like jealousy and greed and anger and these kinds of things that can take over a person's personality. Part of the function of revelation is to give tranquility to our hearts, so that the hearts are not filled with these things. So Allah Azza wa Jalla says, أَلَا بِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ تَطْمَئِنَّ الْقُلُوبِ, for instance, that hearts become tranquil. You should know by the remembrance of Allah, and the best remembrance of Allah is Quran. So we're supposed to become that, purify people in terms of our hearts, but also purity in terms of our understanding, intellectual purity. What that means is all these false concepts of God, all false concepts of salvation. What does it mean to attain success in the afterlife? All false concepts of good and evil. People can have some idea of what the truth is, some idea of what their purpose in life is, and it's mixed in with some impurities, some of their own misinformed opinions. The purpose of revelation is to get rid of these impurities and to leave us with a pure, cleansed understanding of this deen. So that's really important, so that our hearts are pure and our minds are pure, our understanding is pure. That's yuzakkikum. And then thereafter, that when that foundation is built, once that foundation is cleansed, then there's the benefit of teaching the book. And the book implies also in Arabic phrasing, the law. Meaning the messenger's next function is to teach the law. Now if a person's understanding is not clear as to why they're Muslim, what makes them Muslim, what their purpose in life is, then when you give them the laws of this deen, then they will not be able to appreciate the value of those laws, and they will not be committed to those laws because they don't understand the foundation upon which these laws have value. So for instance, for our children, a lot of times, our youth, we don't give them the foundation. We don't give them the intellectual foundation or the spiritual foundation on top of which the deen is built. And then we tell them this is haram and this is haram and you can't do this and you have to do that. And they don't know why. They have no idea why. So they're wondering, our parents do these things. Apparently they never told me a reason for it, or they really didn't give me a convincing reason for it. The messenger was given what curriculum to cleanse people? يَتْلُو عَلَيْكُمْ آيَاتِنَا. He recites onto you our ayat. Quran education. Quran education in and of itself is an intellectual cleanser and a spiritual cleanser. If we're paying attention in salat, we're being spiritually cleansed. And if we're truly understanding what we're hearing and we're reflecting upon what we're hearing in salat, we're being constantly intellectually cleansed also. وَيُعَلِّمُكُمْ مَا لَمْ تَكُونُوا تَعْلَمُونَ. And he teaches you what you couldn't possibly ever have known. وَيُعَلِّمُكُمْ مَا لَمْ تَكُونُوا تَعْلَمُونَ. This part of Allah's favor is already completed. That this revelation and the wisdom in it, the knowledge in it, the means to cleanse yourselves in it, the means to fulfill the purpose for which Allah created human beings, and to give this message to humanity, you wouldn't have had this knowledge. You wouldn't have had this access. But He teaches you that which you could never have known. وَيُعَلِّمُكُمْ مَا لَمْ تَكُونُوا تَعْلَمُونَ. Then He says, فَاذْكُرُونِي. Then as a result, dhikr, remembering, when somebody does you a big favor, then it's easy to remember them. It's easy to appreciate them. And it would be a really indecent thing to do, to not appreciate someone who's done you a grand favor. Here Allah doesn't even impose His favor of creating us, or of giving us our health or our status or any other faculties. He's imposing specifically the favor of sending us the messenger and having His messenger fulfill his mission. And as a result, فَاذْكُرُونِي أَذْكُرْكُمْ. Then you make mention of me. Then فَاذْكُرُونِي. Then as a result, remember me. أَذْكُرْكُمْ. And in response, Allah says, I'll remember you. I'll remember you. There's a very beautiful relationship that's being described here. And a lot of times when you and I, we remember important people all the time. We have, other than Allah, there are important people in society and you remember them. You make mention of them, you talk about them. Sometimes they could be pathetic people like artists and singers or actors. People talk about them all the time. It could be politicians, heads of state, they're in the news. So you remember them and you talk about them all the time. But they don't remember you. They're too big to think about you, right? It's not a two-way street relationship. You know a lot about them, but they know nothing about you and they don't care. They don't want to know about you. There's way too many of you anyway, so they don't want to know about you. In this relationship, now you cannot remember someone more important than Allah Azza wa Jal. You can't. And here Allah is giving us an amazing honor. He says, you're remembering me, and as a result, what am I doing? أذكركم. I'll remember you. I'll make mention of you. SubhanAllah. What an honor Allah gives us, subhanahu wa ta'ala, that He makes it a point to remember us. I mean, just compare that to worldly situations. وَلِلَّهِ الْمَثَلُ الْأَعْلَى. But just the idea of being remembered by someone important. Just that idea, If somebody even makes mention, if some child's name in school is announced by the principal that this student is on the honor roll or something. He's mentioned by the principal, this child is on cloud 9 because my name got mentioned. I'm being remembered. I'm being mentioned. I'm being talked about. It's a huge honor. Allah is honoring the ummah here. فَاذْكُرُونِي أَذْكُرْكُمْ وَاشْكُرُوا لِي. And as a result, be grateful to me. And be grateful to me. Some of the most beautiful things I've read, like Imam al-Alusi rahimahullah, he used to say, I don't know how to thank Allah for giving me the opportunity to thank Him. Because the fact that we're thanking Allah, the fact that we're remembering Allah, in and of itself is a huge favor that so many others don't have access to this treasure. How much reward a person earns when they truly, genuinely remember Allah. They're becoming wealthier by every movement of their tongue. They're becoming wealthier in the akhirah. How can we thank Allah for that? For just that even. So it's an infinite loop. وَاشْكُرُوا لِي وَلَا تَكْفُرُونَ. At the same time He says, don't you dare be ungrateful to me. Now takfuru bi, if you hear a ba, like إِنَّ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا بِاللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ, if you hear the ba, it means to disbelieve. But there's no ba here. وَلَا تَكْفُرُونِي. There's no ba. But when the word kufr comes without a preposition like that, it means to be ungrateful. To deny a favor. It's still a form of denial, but it's denying a favor. وَلَا تَكْفُرُونَ. Be grateful and don't be ungrateful. Now you would think that's redundant. And that's the last thing we'll talk about today. I mean, if you're being grateful, obviously you're not being ungrateful, right? So it's either one or the other. If you're being ungrateful, that means you're not being grateful. So why mention both? Why say be grateful to me and don't be ungrateful? Why? Because it's possible for a human being to be grateful sometimes and ungrateful other times. And Allah is warning us. He's warning us that you should be grateful when? all the time. And don't find yourself in any situation where you are being ungrateful. That's not even acceptable, even a little bit of the time. Because if Allah only says, washkuruli, be grateful to me, that doesn't necessarily mean always. It means you're being grateful, whatever you're doing, you're being grateful. Other times you're neglectful, you're ungrateful. But you could still say, at least in some occasion, I'm fulfilling what it says. But if he says, washkuruli wa la takfurun, he puts the amr and the nahi together, now you can't help but be in a situation of gratitude. You have to be in that situation. This is why the salat is such a beautiful gift from Allah Azza wa Jal. We fulfill this commandment every time we make salat. We do dhikr of Allah in salat. That's part of washkuruli. We fulfill that commandment every time we make salat. So now the only thing we have to worry about is what happens in between salawat. Now that's the only thing left. You know, حافظوا على الصلوات والصلاة الوسطى is coming in this surah too. Make sure you take care of all of the prayers, especially a Salat al-Wusta, which some ulama comment is Salat al-Asr, others said it's Fajr, they have different opinion. And another opinion even is what happens between the prayers. Because it's the middle, meaning in the middle of all the prayers. The connection with Allah in between the salawat. Guard that too, take care of that too. Because you could be watching a movie, oh, Maghrib time, you hit the pause button, you make salat really quickly while the scenes are playing in your head. Right? And then the moment you're done, you hit the pause again, okay, I'm back. You know, you didn't really remember Allah or thank Him. And what's happening in between the salawat is despicable. Right? So, because some people, for salat, it just becomes a habit to them. And it carries no benefit for them other than the physical exercise. Salat is supposed to be a transforming experience. So I pray that Allah Azza wa Jal gives us that benefit in every single one of our salawat and makes us a people that truly are grateful to Him and are not ungrateful. بارك الله لي ولكم في القرآن الحكيم ونفعني وإياكم بالآيات والذكر الحكيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.